let me start by welcoming you all to our first webinar for the year, unpacking the cultural diversity aspect of events management. For many years as marketeers, we were focusing mostly on representing our brands or organizations when we were designing our events for our audiences. This notion seems to have shifted recently, and especially when major brands started going live, reintroducing real-time events, and a lot of questions pop up when you're attending an event. Who we are actually inviting to our events? How are we going to reconnect with our audiences? How do we manage to listen and learn who our audiences are, what they need, how we can better serve them? Do allow me to introduce myself. I am Mario Chatzidamianos. My pronouns are he, him. I serve as the Cultural Ambassador of Diversity Atlas for the European Union region. And it's an honor and a privilege to welcome you to this meeting, and especially our esteemed guest, Mrs. Chisom Udeze, economist and DEIBJ Strategist, founder of Diversify and Diversify Consult. And Diversify has launched the Diversify Nordic Summit in 2022, a significant conference advancing DEIB in the Nordics. Welcome, Chisom. And Mrs. Jen Murray, marketing consultant at Tech Diversity, where she plays a crucial role in steering marketing strategies and collaborating with DEI delivery partners, and marketing consultant at the Tech Diversity Awards in Australia. Welcome, dears. Can I pass the floor to Chisom for a small introduction?
Yes. Hi. Thanks for having me. Small introduction. I'm trying to think about what else to add. I think it's nice to introduce myself beyond kind of like, my CV. So I am Nigerian, had some of my formative years in the US, also a Norwegian citizen. I have 2 kids. I love to play tennis, and I absolutely love spicy food like chili hot food. So nice to be here with you.
Jen?
Well, I'll have to beat that one. I'm Jen Murray. I'm based in Ireland, but I work for a Sydney-based marketing agency called Best Case Scenario, who actually manage the Tech Diversity Foundation, which is a not-for-profit foundation. I have 2 kids, passionate about cycling, especially through the mountains of Connemara. So yeah, delighted to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you, Jen. There is a lot of interest about the topic we will be discussing today, and a lot of people tuned in to discuss with us about changing the way we approach our events design and implementation, especially in the MICE market. For those of you who are not familiar with the abbreviation, MICE stands for Meetings, Incentives, Conferences, and Exhibitions. And in 2023, the annual ICE report estimated that events and brand experiences within the corporate sector reached almost an 80% rise, with key challenges being sustainability, 59%, measurement of event performance, 51%, ensuring the brand is represented consistently across events, 41%, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, 37%. At the same time, organizers struggle to capitalize their attendees' data to create added value for their event. Chisom, Jen, would you like to comment on these findings for moving forward?
Yeah, there's a lot of findings there to digest, Mario, but I suppose what I've really pulled out from that is when you look at the B2B marketing side of things, the numbers are a lot lower in terms of how organizations actually use data as part of their strategy. And in turn, that really helps with the impact of their KPIs, what they want to achieve. So I kind of look at it at 2 ways. One, is the data not really being used because potentially they may not be getting a high response rate within their surveys? And another option is perhaps some marketing professionals are struggling to find the resource and the technology to be able to look at the data and to really truly understand it. So I kind of empathize from that perspective as a marketing professional. Sometimes you've got many hats on, you don't have the time or the resource to really dive into the data. But I think this discussion today will really show the benefits of putting that effort in, making sure that you use the right technology, the right platforms. There's plenty of new tech out there now that can help with the analytics side, the reporting side as well. So yeah, that's kind of my sort of perspective there.
Really interesting. A lot of data around floating around, but people do not actually know how to get their hands on Chisom.
I'm a data person, and oftentimes I reflect on, say, when doing events or creating anything, what comes first? So this is this chicken and the egg story, right? Does data come first or does the intention come first? So what I'm thinking about, agree with what Jen said, is the intention has to be quite defined before your event takes place. Because I think looking at the data after the fact is a bit after the fact, right? So how do we design spaces? Who is it designed for? So from a marketing perspective, when we're designing events, who is our ideal attendee? What persona do they have? What identities do they carry? So for me, I kind of look at things from the perspective of who did we not think of to be in this room, or who did we design it for? And based on that, we can also then look at the data and look at, who did we attract? Did it actually align with who it was designed for? Is there gaps that gives us an opportunity to bridge? So this is kind of what I think about the intention before the data.
That's really interesting, and I will keep this note for later in our discussion because I really believe this is a key mark that we need to come back to. But before moving forward with our detailed presentation, let me ask our audience to review Diversity Atlas self-ID survey. This is the first step to enter the beautiful world of cultural diversity that Diversity Atlas can offer you, and a short review of what Diversity Atlas is all about. Diversity Atlas has been developed by Cultural Infusion as our next step of our mission to build harmony through intercultural measurement and action, serving our vision of a culturally harmonious world. There are a lot of programs and a lot of initiatives coming out from Cultural Infusion, but one of the key things for you to know is that we are also operating a Cultural Infusion Foundation. And as you can see, we have Cultural Infusion, Diversity Atlas, Sound Infusion, and Inclusion Atlas. Developing Diversity Atlas offered us a great amount of insight because the definition of cultural diversity has been poorly defined, analytically neglected, and suffers from inaccurate and exclusive measurement methods. How you can actually transform something without an inclusive understanding of who we are. People have this tendency of playing too many roles. So why is it important to have in mind who is missing?
Quite often, we take for granted that people have different experiences. I think so. If we take a standard thing that happens quite often, say we're trying to amplify gender equality. It's quite easy for us to assume that all women in the world are exactly the same. And usually, whoever is in that group, that woman tends to model whatever the resource, tools, processes, language, and communication is to a woman like herself. And so the importance of asking who's not in the room, is everyone in the room, who's missing, is in inherently recognizing that we are not the norm, that we do not, even though that we have, say, for example, I have a primary identity as a woman, right? That I do not represent the lived experience of every woman. That what can be attractive to woman A will fall flat with woman B. So the point is, it makes it necessary to use an intersectional approach to creating events, to creating spaces. And events are a lot more than just selling tickets or having amazing speakers or an amazing program. We have to intentionally design for everyone we want to include. So if we take women, for example, there are women who are white, there are women who are Black, there are women who are of color, who are indigenous, Latina, there are women who are queer, there are women who are disabled, there are women who are neurodiverse. How do we bring that intersectional perspective to the creation of events? Because when we don't use this approach, what happens is we miss out on wonderful, wonderful people who could participate, contribute, and also become customers. Because ultimately, we're looking to grow our business, grow our products, grow our thought leadership. Let's ensure that we are creating space where every kind of woman feels included. So I'm using women as an example, but really we can look at it as every kind of person, non-binary folk, men, all types of people. Intentionally creating with an intersectional approach goes a long way to answering that question: is everyone in the room?
Jen, does this make us feel uncomfortable asking the question, who is missing?
Not at all. I mean, it's a big thing for us to really understand that gap in terms of who you are as an organization. But are you really targeting everybody? Are you excluding people because of the way you've designed your event? You know, you're going back to the pre-planning phase. Perhaps you haven't done simple things like your digital diligence in terms of contrast of colors, using imagery. You know, you may have an audience that could have a visual impairment. You may have some individuals who are neurodiverse. So, you know, you want to create an environment that's welcoming to everybody, but also so that everybody can function within that environment, learn, and really take in what they're learning. So I totally agree with what you're saying. And intersectionality is often overlooked. We often just look at gender and leave it at that and think that's enough. We're satisfying that, the box is ticked. But it goes deeper than that, as Chisom had said. So I totally agree. Yeah.
Diversity Atlas was developed on the notion that cultural diversity can be measured. We developed the platform using 7 pillars that reflect the multifactorial approach we adopted, from teaming up with a great cohort of experts, hundreds of literature reviews, and 7 years in the making of our R&D. Our survey can be completed in less than 4 minutes. It includes over 11,200 languages, over 8,150 cultural heritages. This means that you can answer what is presented on the right corner of this screen in a recent census being conducted in Australia, where Kachin women realized that they weren't represented in the census. It makes me feel like we do not exist. I feel like we are disappeared. It's very important because it is our identity to continue and pass it on to our children, that woman said. When asked, how does she feel about the census? More than that, what is the best way thinking of who is missing? Are we to think who would make us comfortable and invite them, or should we reach out to the ones we would never thought about?
That's a great question. I think that it comes back to decentering ourselves, because we're not the norm. Like, that's one of the things I remind myself of. I am not the norm. Like, in my worldview, I am the norm, the way I see the world, the way I engage, but that is not true for somebody else. And I think there's something quite humbling about that being the first thing you think about. Is, even if I think I have such a diverse group of people in my life, there are people I don't know. There are people I've not engaged. So coming first with that humility of like, I don't know what I do not know, right? And who we design for is not just about thinking about all the people that we may not consider and all the people that are not in the room. It's also about who is on your design team. The reality is that whole thing about, if you have someone in the group who has different visible identities from you, they will be able to think about things you do not think about. And that is just a statement of fact, right? Having a white woman in a design team as me might raise something that I might not consider as a Black woman, and vice versa, right? So it's about who is in that group. Having people with disabilities, I mean, I also understand that you might not be able to check all the different identities in your planning, but who can you get that is different from you, that has different opinions? Because oftentimes in terms of design, we like to bring people together who are similar to us. So that whole thing about fit, culture fit, where people get you, but there's something quite important about bringing people who are different from us, because you can have people who are visibly different from you who have similar opinions. Also, getting people who have different opinions is quite important to enriching and creating spaces where, wow, people can walk in and go, I feel like somebody thought about me specifically. This space was designed for me. And then the next person who's exactly different from me is also saying, oh my gosh, they thought of me. This space was designed for me. That is the goal.
And it's beautiful to say because, Jen, I have met with Chisom in a recent event in Greece that was dedicated in an EU co-funded program about women entering the ICT sector. And I saw her asking that question on stage, and everybody went, wow, because the actual question was, who is missing in an event about women? And nobody could find the answer. And the answer was men. When we are going into that designing momentum, Diversity Atlas created this inclusive survey experience for all participants. And we strongly believe that further than just checking the boxes of designing and implementing your strategy towards your event, there is another thing to keep in mind. And this thing comes from the answer Chisom gave. How to offer access to everybody to be able to join what I'm doing, to offer me the data that I need. Diversity Atlas have made it really easy. We can offer you a survey link or a QR code, then you can create your own invitation that will be an experience of an inclusive self-ID, secure, anonymous, and engaging survey. This can be sent out in real time prior to your events or during your events, and you can have then the second stage that is the real-time presentation on stage. Your report can have an easy-to-read infographic, compare your results to the available community invited to the event or the community that you are addressing with your brand. And of course, there are some implementation process steps to keep in mind how you drive people to answer the question, who are you? Jen, I would like to ask you, has this process helped you develop your methodology and approach for Tech Diversity Awards?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'd like to just say how excited we were to use this platform. It goes beyond the norm in terms of your standard event survey that you conduct. And what I love about it is that it's not just about being sort of inwardly thinking for corporate. What you're doing with this platform is you're really thinking about who your audience are. And what I mean by who they are, really who they are. They're not just a number. So that was great to be able to see the kind of data that we can collect to really understand that. And I think one of the really important elements for us, and I just want to give you a little bit of background about the event that we used it at. So as I mentioned before, I manage the marketing for the Tech Diversity Foundation. Who are the Tech Diversity Foundation? Well, we work with business leaders and DI leaders and experts to make sure that we help them tackle issues on a boardroom level. So we're looking at ESG issues, we're looking at a talent gap issue, and also building a culture of innovation. So DEI is an enabler for these challenges. So for us, it was important for us to foster a sense of inclusion in our event, but also to demonstrate to our own community that we actually understand diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we are looking to our own audience to make sure that we have everyone in the room. Again, going back to Chisom's point, not to leave anybody out. And that's very important for us. So using a tool like Diversity Atlas was excellent. In terms of the implementation side, we worked very closely in terms of looking at the questions, making sure that it's appropriate for our audience. But I think just on your slide there, Mario, you talk about making sure that everyone counts. And that's the most important phase. So you're always looking to your audience that you're building this for to make sure that you have the ability so that they can feel included, that they can answer the questions that they want to answer. And I think when you make it about them rather than about what you want, they're more open to completing the survey as well. So really it's about, I suppose, bridging that gap in terms of preparing it, making sure that you market it in a meaningful way that really resonates with the audience. And then they do feel like they belong and that they'll get something from this, because as we were promoting this, we also said that we would present the results at the event. We'd also give them the report after the event as well. And the best part really was going through the report. It was so comprehensive. The visuals that were used to help us to really understand the data. And as I mentioned previously, we're all time strapped. So it's really great to get a report where you just look at a visual, you look at an infographic, and you get it straight away. You understand who your audience are, you understand the split between generations. It's all that intersectionality. It's so rich, the data that you get from this. It's so useful in terms of future planning, shaping your events moving forward, making sure you're not leaving anybody out. So the structure that you have up here has really helped us.
That's really beautiful to hear. And of course, I understand that preparing for an event, it's totally different than implementing an event. And I would like to intrigue you, Jen, to tell me, have you used banners, cards, this kind of material?
Yeah, I mean, the QR codes were really popular. Now, we did market the platform pre-event, but really, as people arrived, we had signs at the event to encourage people to scan the QR code and fill in the form. Now, it really only took 3.5 minutes, which really isn't much at all for the data to be completed. And we had a great response rate. And I think the fact, again, that we advertised that we were presenting the results at the event also made people think about really participating in it, because we positioned it about them. So we used really colorful graphics to promote it. We made the button very visible as well to make it easy for them to participate. We worked with other partners as well. We have other DEI delivery partners who helped us really market it as well. So when you really position it as an understanding of who your audience are and leaving nobody behind, then everybody wants to really get on board.
Would it be too much to ask if you could recall some beautiful moments of the revelation of the data within the room?
Yeah, I mean, I think when a representative from Diversity Atlas actually presented the results, and I think that was really a wow moment for a lot of people in the audience. To be able to understand that there's a split in terms of long-term conditions. There's people with visual impairment, neurodiversity. There's a lot of hidden diversity there that people just don't see. And again, they make assumptions. So I think for everybody who is, looking at somebody sitting next to them going, wow, okay, I understand more about the audience around here. I mean, we had something like 55 languages in the room. So it was great to see such diversity there in terms of culture as well. There was a high volume of individuals from different cultures as well. So it was that rich tapestry, I think, that everybody started buzzing about it and talking about it after the event as well. Now, there was one thing that the report did show, and it showed that we were slightly under in terms of our diversity makeup from the previous year. So for us, that's a learning, a learning thing for me as a marketer to go, okay, what can I do differently next year to make sure that we up that number? And what's important here is, if you are going to embark on this, that getting buy-in from the top is great as well within your organization, because once you have buy-in from everybody, it really makes the whole process a lot easier as well, in terms of, this is why we need this, to make sure that everybody's included, that each year you benchmark, you use it every year, and you can track to see how you're progressing. How's your gender split? When you're looking at Generation Z, what's the percentage here? Because they need to be marketed differently to other generations as well. So it's really understanding that information and using it for your marketing purposes.
Diversity Atlas survey doesn't stop before or during the event implementation. It goes beyond that, because after an event, most of us are usually looking for that answer. How can I find the data that I need? I would like the next question to go out to both my guests. Having these insights in place, I want to start with Chisom. Is it something that you would use? And if yes, what would be the major aspects of Diversity Atlas that you would like to introduce?
No, I really liked how it was quick to get through. And I think as well how it can make people reflect on the different dimensions that we carry culturally. I think, that the survey tries to map or works to map diversity, like in terms of what are the cultural identities that we carry, where do we come from, our grandparents, the languages that we speak, our local government areas. And I think that it does highlight, you can actually look to the person next to you who you had a single story about, and say, oh, wow, there are a lot of like interconnected threads there, right? Like you come from so many different people and so many different textures. And I think it's that reminder that we are not just one thing. We're never just one thing. We are a combination of all the different aspects, not just even the things that we are born with from a family basis, but also places we've lived, like people we've crossed paths with and how they inform our identities. So yes, I think it's something that is great for an event because it's easy to tap into, engage people and deliver, visual data driven answers. So yeah, I definitely would use it.
So this brings us to Jen. Jen having used diversity atlas for tech diversity, were the data actionable?
I mean, I think when it comes to program development, it's important for us now for future planning for our next event. You want to create a program where you invite speakers that reflect the audience that you're actually marketing to. So if you've got somebody who sees who understands the background of somebody on the stage and they can relate to them, then I think that's a really important part from a program development side of things. I'd like to sort of go back to the generational differences as well. Looking at a particular Gen Z, let's look at them. So when they're considering an organization to buy for, or when they're considering to attend an event, DEI actually really matters to them. Research has shown that they're drawn to organizations, they'll buy from organizations that actually have DEI at their core. So from a marketing perspective, when you're trying to bring more audiences in, when you're trying to sell a product, when you're trying to meet your marketing KPIs, it's really invaluable to have this kind of information to build personas as well. Persona development is a massive thing for marketing people right now. So it's using these data insights to really drive your strategy.
I would go one step further, realizing the fact that when we are actually helping people identify themselves in their own means and ways, we are actually helping them and supporting their psychological resilience factors.
As somebody who works with clients from all different types of industries in Australia, they're really driven on the KPI side. But look, if you get that right, as you said, Mario, that will really meet everything that you need in terms of your objectives and the sort of pressure that is put on you as a marketing person to bring the right audience. If, by using data points like this, you are showing your audience that you care about them and they will they will have that sense of belonging, which will help with loyalty, and people will come back to you. So it's really as simple as that. It's sort of going back to basics in terms of humanity, really.
That's really interesting. And the same question goes out to Chisom. Chisom, you are a 6 times founder. So many different brands, so many different interests for an individual. So how important are cultural diversified data for the development of your initiatives?
Oh, I think they're quite central. I think data is important in understanding, say from a purely business perspective as well, just understanding who are we reaching, what is working well, what is not, where do we need to, galvanize resources, where do we need to focus, and where do we need to like back away from, just from a business metrics perspective as well. And then also reflecting on, I was just reflecting when Jen was talking about it's also about authenticity, because there are a lot of events happening that this outreach to have a diverse and intersectional audience, and to have like this cultural diverse audience is performative, right? So how do we actually intentionally and authentically create the spaces, but also then collect the data to inform, have we done well? Have we achieved our goals, as Jenny was alluding to? Where can we improve, and what can we learn from this? One of the things that is quite exciting about data is like collecting cultural data is you can think of everyone that comes to you, but then your data might actually show you that you attracted a completely different group of people that you had not even thought about. And that is like the light bulb moment for like, oh my gosh, like there is so much we don't know. There's so much we can learn, and there's so much left to tap into new business and market opportunities. So I think, for everything I do and my entire team, I think like I have quite a few people on my team, and not one person comes from the same country. We all come from different countries. And I think that is so enriching to the work that we do, and it's embedded in how we then engage, and also the data that we want to see on top of that.
Which, Jen, brings me back to you. Based on what Chisom just described, what the aftermath of using Diversity Atlas was for you and the companies that you are collaborating with.
I mean, we kind of have a bigger picture, which I spoke to you about before, where in Australia there is a digital talent gap, and we are working with organizations who obviously, they understand that they need to hire people, skilled workers. Okay, now Australia has set itself a target by 2030 to have 1.2 million tech workers. That's great, but really let's think about, well, how are we going to sustain those numbers? Organizations really need to have DEI at their core, right? To keep people engaged, to make people feel safe about the organization they're with. So from a bigger picture perspective, the results that we get from Diversity Atlas, we're able to develop programs. So for example, we have a DI delivery partner at the moment who's running cybersecurity courses for anybody from any background. So I know one particular woman, she has a marketing background. She decided she wanted to work in tech, so she took this course up. So now she's ready and ripe to go into the tech workforce. So it's really identifying, okay, what the gaps are in terms of technology needs, and what is out there in terms of the community. I got very excited, Mario, when you were talking about all the community data that you have, comparing your own workforce to that community. Are your tech workforce or your workforce reflective of that community? If not, what are the gaps and what can you do to fix it? So I think that's the real power that we really want to tap into here.
I couldn't agree more, because I believe we are on this pivotal point where many of the economies have rebalanced and reshaped themselves from core based on the last 3 years. So we know by default that new plans are coming around the corner. The companies are looking for new ways to engage. Diversity Atlas, it's the first platform globally that has set the standards. We are ISO certified, we are GDPR compliant, we are InfoSec audited, we have really renowned research partners. Some of our clients include major brands across the globe like Amazon and AWS. And of course, we have already done events for major brands like Coca-Cola or the Tech Diversity Awards. So we are really, really, really looking forward to meeting you out there in the market and helping you grow your cultural diversity. Thank you all. And I want to thank especially my esteemed guest, Jen Mary, marketing consultant at Tech Diversity, and Mrs. Chisom Udeze, economist, strategist, founder of Diversify and Diversify Consult. I would also like to thank our sponsors, Barfon for their technical support, MRK for hosting us to their beautiful space, MTC Group for their communication rollout and support, and everyone in our audience for this webinar today. This webinar brought together people from the US, the EU, the UK, Turkey, Malta, the United Arab Emirates, and all the way down to Australia. So I'm not in a position to say good evening, good night, or good morning to any of you. So we'll just leave you with some quotes from our guest.
To all you event marketers and marketing people out there, don't just think about the physical side of inclusion when it comes to events. The great thing about Diversity Atlas, it lets you think beyond that. So yeah, I mean, it's not all about making sure that there's elevators in place. There's a lot more that you can really understand about your audience and use it to your ability as well.
That's a beautiful, beautiful final thing to keep in mind. Chisom?
I just want to say thank you for having me. This has been a very informative and enriching conversation. Thanks, Jenny, for your insights. I thought they were brilliant. Mario for holding it all together. So really appreciate being included. And I guess the last word for me is, as we've said throughout, when in doubt, always ask yourself, even after you think you've done enough, ask yourself, who is not in this room? And see if you can bring them into the room. Thank you.
That is really beautiful, Chisom, and thank you. But I will add one final quote, as today marks a date that will be repeated in 4 years from now. It marks the day of rare diseases. 300 million people across the globe are affected by rare diseases that are not visible. Probably one of them is next to you. So please keep in mind that diversity begins the moment you are born. Thank you all for joining us today. All of us will do our best not to face the same technical problems in our next webinar. Please find the recording online in all our social media channels, and please follow these two great ladies. They are out there. They are the person to go to whenever you're thinking about finding out what diversity, equity, and inclusion in terms of culture looks like. And of course, our Chief Experience Officer, Michael Wamsley, will be at your disposal if you want to reach out to Diversity Atlas. So thank you, ladies, once again. Thank you, everyone in the audience. I hope you enjoyed this meeting today. Have a great evening from Greece.